Welcome everyone to Diane's Patisserie. I'm Diane Nussbaum from Diane's Patisserie, and today we're working on this very delicious apple strudel, which I know everybody's going to love. I couldn't wait after I made it to try some because it just smelled so good. The apples are fabulous. So we've used a combination of 3 different apples today, and this is a personal preference of yours. We've used Rome, Macintosh, and a crisp apple. So the crisp apples are a little firmer than the other ones. The other ones cook down a little more easily. But we're going to begin by cooking our apples, slicing them and cooking them in a pan with raisins, apple juice, and we make a little slurry, what's called a slurry, from the apple juice. We take 1/4 cup of apple juice and mix it with 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and it makes a thickener for our apple filling. Now you have to cook this and let it cool before we can put it into our phyllo dough. But first I'd like to show you how to peel an apple. Some people don't really know how the best way is to peel and cut an apple. So I like to go around in circles all the way around like this. And then once I've cut all the way around, I will cut the apple in half to take out the seeds. And then when you have a flat surface, then it makes it very easy to slice your apples. So I remember when I was first baking and I was trying to make apple pie as a very new bride, and it would just take me forever to finish cutting the apples and peeling the apples, and I just felt like it was the worst part of the whole process. But now we're good at this, and really it doesn't have to take long. But if you choose to cut your apples the day before, you can put them in a solution of lemon juice and water, and or the combination of ingredients that we use to make the strudel, because we're mixing the strudel with cinnamon, nutmeg, and some, of course, butter. The raisins we've soaked in warm water to make sure that they're going to be very moist and delicious. And I'm taking out the core. We've also preheated our oven to 425 degrees. We will be baking our strudel in there very shortly. So the easiest way to cut this, you can put both pieces of apple together and just cut both halves at the same time. So it doesn't take so long. And even if you have some small pieces, it doesn't matter. So these apples would be all ready to go into your apple strudel. And we've gotten our apples ready already, so we don't really need these, but I just thought you would enjoy seeing the best way to peel and core your apples. So I do love the taste of orange, fresh orange in my strudel. So I brought a navel orange. And if you don't have one of these microplaners, you should definitely invest in it if you really enjoy having some rind from your lemons and oranges. It's just fantastic. So and you should smell how wonderful it smells. So I'm just going to put it into our pan, and we've already cooked this and we've let it cool because you can't put the hot apples into the phyllo dough. So I'm just going to mix it through. So you can see that there are apples, raisins, pecans, the cinnamon sugar, and really if you let the apples marinate with all of those ingredients overnight, it will make your apple strudel I think even a little more delicious. So no worries if you want to get this part done a day ahead of time. So we also need some dry breadcrumbs, and we use dry cake crumbs just because we have them. But if you're using breadcrumbs, make sure that they have no flavoring, they're not seasoned in any way. And we've melted 5 tablespoons of butter to use with our phyllo dough. So I know some people are a little worried about using phyllo dough. They think it will dry too quickly. Most importantly, make sure that your phyllo dough is defrosted the day before. Leave it in your refrigerator overnight so it's completely defrosted before you start doing this. And I'm using a Silpat because it's a little messy, And once we put it on here, this is going to help us roll it up into the jelly roll form that you see here. So I'm just going to get out my phyllo dough, which has been staying cold. And of course, I didn't use the whole box, so I was able to wrap it back up so that I could store it for another time. So phyllo dough is very lovely to use for savory dishes as well as sweet dishes. You can use it for spanakopita, which is phyllo dough with feta cheese and spinach and eggs, of course. So you can see that I'm unrolling it carefully, and when it comes in the package, it's well protected. We're going to use 4 sheets of phyllo dough. So I'm going to take one at a time. And it's thin, but you need to work with it carefully, but not too, it won't fall apart on you. So we're going to take our butter and gently get it all over the sheet. And unfortunately, I forgot my pastry brush today, so we're just using a little spoon, which also works. And for each layer, we're going to sprinkle some dry breadcrumbs or cake crumbs. This helps to give the phyllo dough a little bit more support. And we're also leaving an edge that is not being coated at the moment. That's so that we can fold it carefully so that the filling will not come out. So even though this one ripped a little bit, it doesn't matter. It's on the inside, so don't worry. Just put it in place, press it there. And I like to kind of pat it down so they stick together kind of well. Some more butter, which of course makes it more delicious. Rub it in. Add our breadcrumbs. Okay, sheet number 3. So really what I'm trying to let you know is don't be afraid to pick it up. I mean, it won't, even if it falls apart, it's not going to ruin anything. And if you're using phyllo dough for the first time, you might want to keep the extra pieces covered with saran wrap or a damp paper towel. But you just have to work quickly, have everything ready. So when I was cooking the apples, I actually melted some butter first, then put the apples, the apple juice, or you can use orange juice also. And strudel is one of those things that my grandmother used to make that was so amazing. And hers was a little bit different than this. She used to put coconut inside. So when you're doing something like this, it's really a personal preference as to the apples that you want to use, as to the specific flavors that you want to put in. If you like golden raisins instead of dark raisins, that's fine. If you like walnuts instead of pecans, that's fine. We also suggest that you toast the pecans before you add them to the filling, just because when you toast any nut, it gives it the most flavor. And I'm saving a little bit of the butter to brush on the top and the edges. So now we are going to spoon, well first I'm going to fold up our phyllo dough so it doesn't get dried out. So once you're finished with it, do remember to gently fold it up to protect it. And now, so we're going to put our apples evenly all over our phyllo dough. And you can see we have lots of good stuff in here. I don't know how many of you have ever done jelly rolls, but having a piece of parchment paper or your Silpat to help you roll it up is very helpful. And I would suggest these apples are a little chunkier than we usually cut them. Depends how you like your apple desserts to be, but you can cut them a little finer. You can even chop them if you like. This looks just perfect. And you want to try and get it as evenly distributed as possible. It will help in the baking. So now I'm going to brush these edges so that I'm going to fold them in to make a tight seal for our filling. So again, pressing down and just keep going around in each direction, each side, folding it down. So again, I'm going to use some butter to kind of seal it. And now this is probably the most difficult part of the whole process. So we're using our silpat to start rolling it, and the object is to make your roll as tight as possible. So we keep using the silpat to continue rolling and pressing, making sure that the ends are tucked in. So we've used 2 1/4 pounds of apples. It's about 5 or 6 apples, depending upon how big your apples are. And when you get to the end, you want to make sure that you roll it so that the seam is on the bottom. But you can see that now it's at the edge of my silpat, and we don't really want it there. So even though it seems fragile, don't be afraid to pick it up. Kind of squeeze it together. And it gets very toasty, sugary as it's baking, so it's nice to bake it on a surface like this because it's the easiest to clean it. But I'm also going to put it on a regular piece of parchment paper just to make sure that we don't have too much of a mess to get it into the oven. So now we'll brush it some more. And you can see that on the one that was already cooked, some of the phyllo dough pieces on the outside kind of flake off. That's just the nature of this dessert. It is flaky. You can't really avoid it. But you want it to be nice and golden brown. So we're using up all of our butter. And I put some more cake crumbs on the top when I baked it. You could do cinnamon sugar. And also when you're cooking your apples, you could feel free to use a Calvados, an apple brandy if you like. The alcohol will cook out when you're cooking the apples, but you do have to make sure that the apples are cool before you put this in the oven and before you roll up your strudel. That's looking pretty good. Looks pretty tight. So a little bit more of our wonderful cake crumbs. Also, if you do bake a lot at home and you have pieces of cake left over that nobody ate or whatever, don't throw them away. Let them dry out and make them into cake crumbs like we do, because they're so useful for so many things, to make cake pops or to put on your ice cream. And we use them for a lot of different things, or to decorate the base of a cake if you don't feel like piping a border, if you do that type of cake decorating. And everybody will love them because they have a very, very good flavor. So I think we're about ready to put this in the oven, and then we'll talk about how to finish it. So the apple strudel only bakes for about 15 to 18 minutes. It bakes pretty fast because it's at a very high temperature, so you don't have to wait too long. But if you decide that you want to make it the day before your company is coming, also fine. We did ours the day before. You can warm it up gently in your oven, put it in at 200 degrees while you're having your dinner, and then it's the perfect temperature to serve it nice and warm with some ice cream. We've plated it with some whipped cream and a strawberry. If you have any caramel sauce or Nutella, any of those wonderful additions can be put on the plate to serve your apple strudel. And again, you know, the variety of apples that are available to us today are so fabulous. So choose the ones that you like the most and the ones that will hold up inside your filling. And it looks like our choice of apples really stood up. You can see they're chunky, as well as nice amount of layers of phyllo dough inside. And it cut beautifully. I didn't have any problem cutting it with just a regular knife. So it's something that you have to pay attention to when you're choosing your apples. Try different ones, try different things inside. Try lemon rind, orange juice, and we'll be back as soon as our apple strudel comes out of the oven. So to add to our apple strudel, we could make either a chantilly whipped cream or just like a little creme anglaise. So I have some heavy cream in my bowl and some confectionery sugar, and I'm just going to mix some of it with a hand whip, which will make a nice little sauce that you can put on with your apple strudel. So confectionery sugar to heavy cream is a personal preference. You can use 2, 3, 4 tablespoons to your heavy cream depending upon what you like. But everybody loves whipped cream, so that's why we plated it with whipped cream, but of course it's always fabulous to do nice vanilla ice cream with your apple strudel as well. So just whipping this up. Of course, if you wanted to do it in your mixer, it would go a lot faster. And then you can just put a little sauce on the plate. It's getting thick. Not exactly piping whipped cream yet, but I will put a little bit of the sauce on the plate just so you can see. And you can also add some vanilla to this, or as I said before, some apple brandy or any alcoholic beverage that you might like to incorporate into your sauce. So it is getting a little bit thicker. And we'll just put a little bit on our plate so that when you go to take a bite of your apple strudel, you can have a little sauce to dip it into, and that looks fantastic. So here we are, a little creme anglaise, a little chantilly whipped cream, a fresh strawberry, and a delicious apple strudel. Our apple strudel will come out of the oven so you can see one that has just been baked. So we'll be back shortly to show you a hot apple strudel right out of the oven. So fabulous. So I just took our strudel out of the oven. It's been out for a couple of minutes, but because we really rushed the apples to get cold enough, long enough, a lot of the juices kind of came out of the side of our strudel, which is a good thing for you to see because it's really worth it to cook the apples hours before you're actually going to put the strudel together. I kind of pushed them in, so it's fine and it will taste fine, but it is really worth your while to cook your apples in advance and let them cool completely. And they also get a little thicker too. And then we'll just give it a beautiful dusting of powdered sugar and still let it rest a little while longer before we'll actually be able to cut it to serve it. So I would say if you want to make it and serve it on the same day that you're going to use it for your party, you can cook it while you're eating dinner, put it in the oven while you're eating dinner, let it come out, let it get cool for 15-20 minutes before you're going to try and move it because it's going to be harder to cut it when it's really hot out of the oven. Just remember you can make the whole thing the day before and just warm it gently in the oven the day that you're going to serve it. So I hope you enjoyed our apple strudel, and in the summer you could do it with peaches, you could do it with blueberries, you know, be creative, make it delicious, anything you like, serve it with ice cream, whipped cream, enjoy. Glad to see you again, and I hope to see you soon. We're going to be working on wonderful chocolate decorations to make your cakes look so professional. You will love it. Thanks so much. I'm Diane from Diane's Patisserie, and if you have any questions or you want any recipes, feel free to send me a message, email me at diane@dianespatisserie.com, call 609-502-4073. I look forward to speaking with you whenever. Have a great day.